a vintage Vader gets very large. Here's a look at the Gentle Giant Limited Star Wars Darth Vader concept figure. This jumbo figure, based on the concept artwork for the first Star Wars movie, represents the first in a new series of jumbo figures spotlighting the origins of the Star Wars saga. Featuring artwork-inspired sculpting and details, and wielding a retractable white-bladed lightsaber, this posable figure is styled to resemble the classic Star Wars figures of old, but at an epic 12-inch scale. It is manufactured to exacting standards, and comes packaged in this resealable clamshell blister card. May the Force be with you. Some pretty cool retro Ralph McQuarrie artwork here happening with Darth Vader. Before we get a closer look, though, at this retro Vader, I'd like to thank the folks over who probably are in a galaxy far, far away. The folks over at Diamond Select. They did provide this sample of Darth Vader that we could have a look at in this video. Grabbing now the tape measure. This is going to be a pretty tall Vader. Just how tall, you may say? Clickety-click, barb trick, taking it right to the very top of his domed helmet. The figure advertised, though, as being 12 inches, and in actual fact is actually closer to about 13. 13's up here. We're just a little shy of that. I'm going to say he's about 2 3/4 of an inch tall, and that works out to be a figure impressively that's about 32 and a half centimeters tall. Obviously, there's a couple of cool things going on here with Darth Vader. The first of which is the fact that his mold is based on the original Kenner Star Wars Darth Vader. The second is the fact that the head sculpt is actually based on Ralph McQuarrie's artwork of what Darth Vader would have looked like before the film was made. So you have a much more sleeker, more menacing looking Darth Vader. The third thing that's cool about this release, though, is that it involves me actually having to move over Darth Vader just a little bit. You already saw a sneak peek of it at the very beginning of this video. I'm just going to grab it right now. There's the packaging. The packaging is, first of all, pretty large. I mean, the front of it, if you just to look at it next to Darth Vader, Vader goes to about the top of where the illustration is of Darth Vader on the front concept art. But again, it's done in such a way that it looks like the original clamshell or card backing. And then on the back, you've got the artwork, of course, of Ralph McQuarrie, him battling Luke Skywalker. In both the cases here as well, you can see that the lightsabers are white, not the more traditional red and blue. And then down below as well. I wanted to spend a little bit of time, after all, talking about the artwork here and the packaging. Other characters, I guess, they plan to release are Luke Skywalker. We will be looking, of course, Darth Vader, Stormtrooper, a Han Solo, and C-3PO. And they even have gone down below and have made Gentle Giant Limited, done in the same font and coloring as the original Kenner. How cool is that? Anyways, back to Darth Vader, though. He is a scaled-up version of the original Kenner Darth Vader that would have been released way back when. Some of you may have been even old enough to have the original Darth Vader figure. Never had the chance, unfortunately, to ever have the original Darth Vader, but I had a friend who had all of the Star Wars figures. You know whose house I was going over there every single weekend. If Rick is actually watching this video, you had quite a cool Star Wars collection. But what I like about this, though, is that they've taken the same core concept in the original mold of Darth Vader and just, of course, increased the size of it. Like the original toy as well, this Darth Vader does possess a retractable lightsaber. And it's not so much a case, actually, where the lightsaber is white, as sort of indicated on the front of the packaging. Instead, they've actually gone more of a lighter pastel blue, but it works the same way. I guess we can kind of already talk about the articulation, because the articulation will be very limited on Darth Vader, like the original vintage Kenner toy. Head is going to be on a ball joint, more a swivel joint than anything else. It moves up and down just a little bit, but more of the mileage is actually just from swiveling it back and forth. Again, we'll go to look at the head in a second. Arms rotate all the way around. Again, all the way around. And if you blinked, you almost would have missed it. He actually does have leg articulation as well. Neat thing about this figure is actually that on the undersides of his feet, he does have hexagonal display stand pegs, even though he doesn't actually come included with the display stand. Just that's included. I did want to kind of quickly go through the articulation because it does involve me for moving the arm out to show you that there is a little track underneath like the original vintage toy. The vintage toy would have had a more flimsier plastic but worked along the same lines. You basically just take this little lever here and you draw it forward to extend, of course, the lightsaber a little longer than what it was before, or you can just pull it back. It doesn't completely conceal itself, so it almost looks like Darth Vader's almost got himself like a little pointing device. Again, you can bring that out and bring that forward. The original Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker, they also had the same functionality as well. I'm not sure why they decided to not go white, instead going the pastel blue, but still, it's not traditional Vader red colors, but it works quite well with the Macquarie design. Again, we're just going to fold that back because I don't want to break the blade on this. Bringing that down, one of the things also that were on the original Kenner toys carried over here for a larger scale Vader is the type of plastic cape that they would have used. It actually kind of comes across more like a high-collared cape, something like even like a Dracula would have almost even had the higher collar like this. It's actually more of a more plastic, thicker than a garbage bag, but sort of kind of that same type of material. In fact, the material I could probably best describe it as, if you ever had the old binders growing up in the day, the ones that would have been wrapped around cardboard. Usually a lot of times they'd be punctured or ripped by the time the end of the school year was. A lot of times I would actually just take that and cut it off the cardboard. And a lot of times I would use that material to make little tiny wrestling belts. That's a true story, by the way. But that's the best way to kind of compare the material, or describe at least the material that they would have used. It's similar to what would have been wrapped around like the old note tote binders back in the 80s. How many people will actually remember note tote binders? So it's kind of a more like a plastic material, and essentially what it is they've just put holes on either the side, and this just wraps around Vader's body. They likely would have probably had the arms off, put the cape on and encase his body, and then just snapped the arms on either side, and that keeps contained the cape on actual Darth Vader's body. Getting a closer look, though, and this is really, for me, the appealing aspect of this Darth Vader is not only the vintage relevance to it, but the fact that the head sculpt looks like Ralph McQuarrie's original Darth Vader design. Kind of a design I really honestly wish could have been carried over more accurately to the movie. While I did like the look of Vader in the films, I always thought that McQuarrie's design of Vader looked a lot more scarier. You can see like the head sculpt, first of all, done differently here in blue instead of the black, has again a more sleeker, almost insectoid look to it. It still has the oversized eyes where Vader's human eyes would be looking straight through. But again, like the more narrow nature of the mouth, I think it just made for a much scarier looking Darth Vader. And again, when it comes to his coloring, like the main body, just to move the cape out of the way here, the main body is kind of just more of a molded black plastic. Then what they've gone and done they've added all the additional navy blue elements here. So he has it in his boots. He has it in his belt. He has it, of course, in the breathing apparatus. No lights, no functionalities, no even switches or anything like that. And then he's got the blue also there in the head sculpt. But just such a cool head. I just want to kind of peel away the cape. I don't want to do too much damage to it, but just enough that you guys can see the head sculpt for the Macquarie Darth Vader. Very, very cool. I love this. He has the helmet. The helmet, of course, is the blue. It's the same coloring also that they've added to the shoulder sections here. And in the gloves, what's interesting is he also has these arm bands that go about mid-arm length. He also has the black gloves. So he only really has the blue in this part, the helmet, the belt, shoulders, and going again down below in the legs. But it makes for such an interesting looking Darth Vader. I think at one point, Gentle Giant had also done an overscaled Darth Vader, more of a traditional Kenner design. But I gotta say, I really do, again, like the way they've done this in the Macquarie look. Adding, again, the additional blue not only brings the details a lot more to the forefront, but I think it's a nice contrast, too. And it actually kind of works well with the fact that they did decide to use the pastel blue lightsaber instead of what I would have traditionally thought would have been the white lightsaber. It really does make for a really interesting and unique collectible. If you are a big fan of Star Wars collectibles and putting them on your shelf, this Vader, granted, is going to be a lot larger than some of the other collectibles that have been released in the past, towering at over 13 inches. What do we clock this guy in at? 13 inches tall. His articulation, granted, is limited, but that goes in line with what Kenner would have been doing back in the 80s or so. 5 points of articulation. That was across the board for really all of the figure lines back in the day. So again, head articulation, shoulder articulation, leg articulation. That's all you're getting for Darth Vader here. But what you're getting instead not only is a throwback to the original retro Kenner line, but you're also getting it in, like I said, a taller format, and you're getting it based on the original illustrations and painted works of Ralph McQuarrie. And I think that is what makes this is a all-star collectible, especially if you're, again, a Star Wars fan or even just not a big Star Wars fan. A great looking piece to be putting on display from the folks over at Gentle Giant and Diamond Select Toys. Casual Star Wars fans, okay, maybe not. It's the diehard fans, who are we kidding, they're going to want to track down this variation of oversized Darth Vader and putting him on their shelves. The neat thing about this, as already mentioned, it's scaled up from the original molding of Kenner's vintage Star Wars figures. So this is what Darth Vader would have looked like back in the day, with limited 5 points of articulation and a lightsaber he was concealing up his sleeve. It's not so much concealing, it's still sticking out the end of his hand. But the neat thing about this one is not only are you getting the look of what Darth Vader would have looked like way back when, but you're also getting the art styling of Ralph McQuarrie. It's his illustrations, after all, that sold the concept of Star Wars in the first place, and that's been etched into not only Darth Vader's soul, but also into the head sculpt that they've molded here in blue. I gotta say, I do like the look of the blue. It works quite well with the black, and even again makes it look even more vintage. The neat thing, as I probably didn't even mention in this review, the benefit of the Gentle Giant packaging is that you can just cut the seals on the side and just open up the clamshell without damaging the package. What that means is, if I decide down the road I don't want to have Vader on display loose like this, I can easily put him back in the packaging and put him on the wall like that. That's one thing I really like that Gentle Giant is doing with their packaging, making it consumer and collectible friendly, that you don't have to destroy such cool looking packaging in order to get the figure out. Ultimately, like I said, for the time being, I'm going to have Vader displayed with his lightsaber up his sleeve on the shelf loose like this, but I'm sure sooner or later I'm going to go and put him back in the packaging, because the packaging is way too good to be putting away in storage. What do you guys think, though, of the Ralph McQuarrie concept version of Darth Vader, scaled up from the folks over at Gentle Giant and Diamond Select? Pretty cool looking figure, isn't it? Speaking of Diamond Select, I'd like to thank the folks over at Diamond that did provide the sample of concept Vader that we can have a look at in this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit it with a like. If you love the content that you're seeing here on a regular basis, and you haven't already done so, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. Keep your peepers peeled while we have wrapped up the review of vintage concept Vader. There's definitely going to be a lot more Diamond Select reviews coming your way. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.